For our final story, my friends, we are going to pick up a thread that I've been researching for a couple of years. As I mentioned earlier in the show, I went to the No Kings protest in Houston as a journalist, not necessarily there as a protester. I didn't have signs in my hands. I didn't march or anything. I just had my camera, had my microphones, and I asked some questions. I don't support many of Trump's policies, and I also don't support the Democrats and their policies or the progressives. And I think that there are problems on both sides of the aisle. Those of you who know my work know that. But what I hate more than anything are lies and misrepresentations of the truth. And unfortunately, that's what I see happening a lot from both left and right. But right now, it's mainly happening from the Trump supporters. And this is that the No Kings protest, I heard this many times, No King protest is bought and sold. It was completely controlled. It was everybody, all the protesters are paid. I've seen so many of these comments in my videos, unfortunately. And it's sad because I went there on purpose to interview them so that you guys out there, instead of just speculating and saying, oh, it's just a bunch of crazy leftists, blah, blah, whatever, they're just going to burn all the cities down, you could actually hear from people. Instead of being told it's just a bunch of old white people, which apparently seems to be one of the new MAGA claims, you could see that there were black, brown, white, Asian, all kinds of people there. And there was young college students, people in their 30s, their 40s, 50s, all the way up to, yes, older white people. It was a mix of people. I don't know why people can't look for themselves, but here we are. People just listen to the garbage they hear on their favorite MAGA channel, and the left does it too in their own way. That's why it was so interesting to me to go there to see the hypocrisy. One of the biggest claims coming out, though, is that George Soros funded the entire thing. And I've seen a lot of people claiming this, and they've claimed this in the past about the 2020 protests for George Floyd. So here's one of the videos that I got sent to me. This has been seen 300,000 times on Twitter. Breaking update. I don't know who this guy is. Never heard of him before. Seamus Bruner. Breaking update. This Saturday, October 18th, No Kings 2.0 goes global. This was before the protest. And remember, before the protest, a lot of the right-wing folks, including this guy, were claiming that it was going to be civil war. There was going to be violence everywhere. Stay home. I had people telling me, Derek, I wouldn't go out to those protests. You need to be careful. I'm like, you guys just listen to too much garbage on the internet. And so beforehand, everybody was doing their best to link it all to George Soros and left-wing billionaires. And so then the message is, it's not worth your time. It's not worth supporting. Don't listen to what they have to say. Make fun of them because it's just old white people, or scare people and say it's going to be civil unrest. They're going to just have Antifa everywhere. And so the whole point is to just demean and diminish this movement as much as possible. And again, I'm not saying that as a wholesale defense of everybody associated with No Kings. I'm just saying you don't have to pay people to hate Donald Trump. You don't have to pay people to come out to the streets to protest the things Trump's doing, because a lot of people don't like them. And I guess that MAGA just can't see that. They have trouble even recognizing that. Let's get into the details here, though. This Saturday, October 18th, No King 2.0 goes global. Organizers claim to stand against kings and billionaires, but new Peter Schwarzer team, president at GAI, and this website Drill Down, which we're going to go to in just a second, research into Riot Inc. shows the unrest is fueled by billionaires. And so you got this, there's Soros, there's Zuckerberg, there's Bill Gates, and there's some others here. And they have claimed 72 million, 100 million, 50 million, 245 million. And so they have a little tweet thread here. It says, we traced 294 million to the official No Kings 2.0 partners and organizers. So make that clear, not to the No Kings protest itself, to partners and organizers. So if you go to the No Kings website, let me just open that up. You can see that they've got a list of all kinds of partners here. And again, these are not groups that I necessarily support or endorse in any way. And they don't link directly to them, which I think probably they might be on purpose to make it difficult for people to track these things down. And this is important to look at who the funders are. So here's their alliance. It looks like they took down, here we go, about trainings, partners right here. So let's look at their partners. It's a who's who of left-wing progressive organizations. None of this should be any surprise because this is a left-wing movement. People are like, oh my God, it all goes back to the Democrats with Act Blue and funding is going there. Of course. It'd be more surprising if the money was going to Republicans. But of course, look at the names of these: Activate America, the Alliance to Reclaim Our Schools, American Association of University Professors, American Humanist Association, United Art Workers, Arab American Institute. I mean, it is a pretty big coalition, I will say. Boulder, Democratic Socialists of America, Build the Resistance. Like, yes, there's some more radical left group, but there's the Center for Biological Diversity. There's a lot of pretty plain kind of maybe center-left organizations that are also a part of this. But the point is, people are claiming if you go through and track all the funding to these groups, then, as they said here, it leads to these different networks and what they're calling Riot Inc. The Arabella Network, 79.7 million. Soros Network, 72.1 million. And again, what they mean by that is groups that have been, and this is how they can sort of, I think, obfuscate and not give you the full picture. By saying Soros Network, that means you have the Open Society Foundations, which is the main place that George Soros gives his money. And then Open Society Foundations gives to the Tides Foundation, or these groups give to these other organizations. And then maybe as you filter down, some of that money makes its way to groups that are partnered on the No Kings protests. But for anybody who's ever actually been involved with protest movements, you're always looking for partners. So if you can find somebody who's aligned with you, you're going to put their logo on your website. You got Refuse Fascism, which definitely are more left-leaning and radical. You got all these different groups, right? Some of them may have received money from a group that received money from George Soros. That doesn't mean that the No Kings protest did. That just means that they have them listed on their partners. Now, what we would really need is to understand, what does partner mean? Does partner just mean, hey, we're aligned with this movement, and so we're going to promote it on our social media? I guarantee you that's literally all it means for some of them. Does partnered mean, okay, the money that we receive, we're going to pass on to you? I don't think that's necessarily guaranteed. And that's where it can get confusing, where people are seeing these big numbers, 79 million, 72 million from the Soros Network, and they think that means that money went to the No Kings protest. No, it went to different groups, which gave to different groups, which may be partnered with this No Kings protest. What does it actually mean to be partnered? We don't have those details. And this tweet right here with these stupid, this fucking little spreadsheet thing. I've seen this thing shared to so many places, screenshotted. People just pop this out like, look, see, Derek, look, total funds sent to No Kings, 2 partners. There's literally no source there. There's not a link. There's not a link to any documentation. I mean, then there's plenty of websites. Like you can go to open source, Charity Watch. You can go to, there's all kinds of websites to look at dark money groups like this. I use them all the time. I can't think of them off the top of my head right now. But there are many websites where you can go search Charity Navigator, Charity Watch, Source Watch, different things like this, and you can find out the funding of these places. They didn't link to any of that. They literally just calculated it together. So it's pretty much just saying, trust me, bro, we did the research. And I know it's Twitter, so maybe they're trying to make it simple. But as I'll show you, they never link you to where these numbers allegedly come from. So they start with George Soros. Soros's Open Society directly contributed 72 million plus to official No Kings 2.0 organizers and partners. Again, partners. There's no clear indication on what that money went towards. You can donate money. Typically, like if you donate to a nonprofit, you don't just give it at like empty, like here's $70 million, here's $1 million, do whatever you want with it. You have to give it for very specific purposes, because despite what people think, there are rules and regulations around how this money is given. That doesn't mean it can't be abused or they can't lie. Obviously, that can happen. But I'm just trying to help you guys understand the nuance that there are rules and regulations around how a billionaire with a nonprofit like the Gates Foundations or Open Society can give to a organization. They can't just wholesale emptily hand that to them with no strings attached. There are strings attached and how that can be used. So it says Soros is the primary architect of Riot Inc. protest model and the master of color revolutions. And I've reported on in the past. Yes, George Soros gives to organizations all around the world. But in fact, over the years, I've become a little bit more skeptical and nuanced about this. I don't just see the name George Soros or even Bill Gates and automatically think, it's everything is bad, or that it's all, everything that they've done is wrong. I think that it's a bit more black, gray in there. It's not just black and white. Zuckerberg, again, Zuck's orgs funneled $50 million into Riot Inc. dark money network through Arabella and Tides Link foundations. His money helps underwrite the same protest infrastructure now powering 2.0, Kings 2.0. And so here's this picture. Again, my problem with this is these are just like screenshots of alleged spreadsheets, but there's and it's hard to read. Here, let me go ahead and open it up bigger for you guys. But these are like alleged spreadsheets, but they don't really give you much detail. So let's zoom in here. We got 2023 Chan Zuckerberg Foundation, and they got the EIN numbers. That's at least a little more than before. Recipient, Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors. Purpose, for the developing of a framework for practitioners, facilitating design. So again, here, now they're actually at least getting into the details. Like I said, you can't just give millions of dollars. There typically are there's stipulations on what the money can go to and how it can be used. And at least in this case, they're providing a little more detail. But still, those details don't necessarily show what they're claiming. So let's kind of look in here a little more. So yes, they're true that the Zuckerberg Foundation has given to the Tide Center, the Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors Incorporated, Tide Center New Venture Fund. And you can look at what those things are supposed to go towards. Like in this case, again, support Bay Area homeless prevention pilot. What does that have to do with No Kings? Are they trying to tell me that because the Zuckerberg gave $2.4 million to Tides to support Bay Area homeless prevention pilot, that somehow has to do with No Kings? No, it doesn't. They have no evidence of that. What about when the Zuckerberg Initiative Foundation gave to New Venture Fund, and it's for Student Experience Research Network, and they gave $1 million to the Arabella, that's Arabella Network? What does that mean? That doesn't have anything to do with No Kings, but you see what they do here is they just add the whole thing up and boom, you get $51 million. And then you can go to Twitter and say, Zuckerberg has sent more than $50 million into the Riot Inc. dark money network through Arabella and Tides Link foundations. They literally have nothing to do with No Kings. That just means that those groups are listed as partners on the No Kings protest website. But that doesn't mean that 50 million went to the No Kings protest. And then it goes on. They got a Swiss donor here. I mean, I think you guys are starting to get to the point. They, at least again, under the Bill Gates one, they do provide some more spreadsheets, but I mean, I'm pretty sure we can go to these spreadsheets. This is for the Zuckerbergs again. They got Tide Center for support Bay Area homeless prevention, for community justice exchange, for trans justice funding. I don't know what that has to do with No Kings, but people are acting like it does. And billionaire Bill Gates pumped $100 million into the same Arabella Tides Ford infrastructure funding this weekend's global protest. Okay, so Bill Gates gave $2.345 million to the Tide Center for K through 12 education. What the fuck does that have to do with No Kings? It has nothing to do with it. They gave $600,000 for post-secondary education. So they're literally taking donations to these organizations which have nothing to do with protest movements, and claiming that it somehow has to do with No Kings simply because some of the groups that receive the money are listed as partners under No Kings. Now, you could come up with a theory if you got evidence, or you could just make shit up like you do on a lot of people do on the internet and say, no, Derek, that's a lie. It didn't really go to K through 12 education. That 2.3 million went to the pockets of the founders of the No Kings movement. But to do that, you'd have to provide evidence. But I guess in the age we live in, even if you don't have evidence, people will believe you. And so Bill Gates, and they go on, Mark Benioff. And again, these aren't people I support or endorse, but their point here, what they're trying to get across is obviously No Kings is not a grassroots movement. Where to go? Obviously, No Kings 2.0 is not a grassroots. This level of coordination requires serious funds. The protesters should just own it. Instead, they hold up anti-billionaire signs funded by billionaires. Are they being dishonest or ignorant? And so they try to just downplay and dismiss and diminish the entire movement. Here's another one. Anna Paulina Luna, who's this freaking this representative who so many people kind of have a crush on because she went on Joe Rogan and talked about UFOs and is mildly attractive, and she's in. I'm pretty sure the intelligence agencies engineered her, honestly, like put her in this position because she's intelligent, she's MAGA, she's attractive, and she's a useful propaganda tool. Anna Paulina Luna highlights Soros' alleged No Kings protest involvement. This is from the Floridian Independent Press, and they link to this tweet from her, which is basically the same thing. The No Kings protest was completely organic. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And they have this whole spreadsheet here. Let me open the spreadsheet up. I've double checked this. This spreadsheet is literally the same information at the other place. So a Jewish Voice for Peace Incorporated received 300,000 from Rockefeller, Tides 200,000. And so they have all the spreadsheet numbers and they add it up at the bottom and it says 294 million. And what does that turn into? Then the MAGA says the No Kings protest has received $294 million, which isn't true. It went to different groups who are partners with them. And as I said earlier, being a partner doesn't guarantee that they had anything to do with the organizing. It doesn't mean that any of the people on the ground received money, or anything like that. I mean, look at the groups that they're highlighting. These are groups that probably, in some cases, MAGA would support. Like, for example, Food and Water Watch. Do you know who that is? They received 200,000 from Rockefeller. Okay. That has nothing to do with No Kings, but Food and Water Watch is one of the plaintiffs on the fluoride lawsuit, the people who've been suing the EPA to reveal the dangers of fluoride and how it's damaging children's health. And they want us to be mad about that. They want us to think that, for one, that's a bad thing, that they receive some money that's going to something good. Again, that back with the nuance, not everything the Rockefellers have ever done is criminal or bad. Doesn't mean I support them and their eugenics agenda, but this is just, it's just garbage. And so people see this kind of stuff coming from this representative, and thankfully some people are pushing back. Look, somebody said this, like, they put a little picture of, oh yeah, remember this? Miriam Adelson gives $100 million to Trump campaign, making good on reported pledge. Yep. And remember, Trump was recently praising Miriam Adelson. And this is not anything new, guys. I talked about this, like I said, in 2020. What I'm doing right now is basically a part 2 of this video. I did this video in June 2020. Is George Soros more than a boogeyman? And I looked at the same thing, claims that George Soros is funding the protests for George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Rayshard Brooks. And I went through dozens of links in this one, and I think this one is worth watching as well for people who buy this whole idea. Yes, it's true that George Soros does try to destabilize governments and has some of the groups he's funded have been involved in major protests. But George Soros has become this boogeyman, this punching bag for everything that the right hates. And it's lazy. I think it's just lazy, guys. I mean, it allows people, as I was saying earlier, to just say, oh, that's just a bunch of old white people. Oh, it's just going to be dangerous. It's going to be violent. Oh, they're funded by billionaires. And get people to not pay attention to the actual causes. Now, I went to the website that guy was promoting, The Drill Down with Peter Schweitzer, Riot Inc., the hidden networks fueling the unrest. And I started to look into this stuff, guys, and maybe some of you guys follow them. I've never heard of them until somebody sent me this. The control oligarchs are funding the fury. Bruner talks donor networks bankrolling unrest across the country. I don't see unrest happening. I see people resisting ICE. And these people also, like I said, they sure did hype it up like there was going to be riots in the street during this No Kings protest. They've got, here you go, if you go to their browser, Dark Money Inc., No Kings, Riot, you can go to these links and you can see what they've claimed. It's basically the same thing that they claimed. Here's the link that they claimed on Twitter there, that these billionaires are, they there it is. They show the screenshot of the spreadsheet and they've got these numbers here, 79.7 million, 72 million. But you notice they don't link to anything. It's just the Twitter thread again. And the Twitter thread really didn't go anywhere. I mean, they had screenshots of spreadsheets. But if this was a real investigation, then put the spreadsheet publicly. Link to the websites where you found because I mean, even if we go with their narrative, which requires just trusting their numbers, they haven't shown their homework. They have no evidence or no link to any of the stuff that they're claiming. So I'm going to give them a failing grade. Because for one, they're asking us to just trust their numbers with no links to the actual spreadsheets, no links to the sources of where they got these numbers. And let's say they did provide that and it's 100% accurate. They still are trying to insinuate that because these different organizations received money from open society foundations and because those organizations are listed as a partner on the No Kings protest, that means that the No Kings organizers, the main groups behind it, which from what I saw are actually 3 or 4 groups, including one women's group in Florida. Not to say they've never received money from shady people, but it's not this dark money network like they're making it seem. The average protester I talked to in Houston is just a pissed off person. There was old liberals that were in their 70s. There was old, liberals in their 50s. There was younger people in their mid 20s. I mean, there was a mix of people just look at my interviews and you can see the diversity, and you can see people walking in the background and see the diversity of people, right? Those people were not paid by George Soros to be there. They don't have to be paid to go protest Donald Trump any day of the week. Now, let me show you one other final thought on this story. I posted this recently. While George Soros's funding of protests should not be ignored, and the predator class and some in MAGA want you focused on him, George Soros, rather than the billionaires in the White House influencing Trump. So pay attention to George Soros and Bill Gates only. Pay no attention to Larry Ellison, Peter Thiel, Miriam Adelson, and the other Howard Lutnick and Scott Bessent and the other billionaires, some who are even associated with George Soros. Pay no attention to the former WEF members and young global leaders and members of the Bilderberg Group and the Trilateral Commission who were in the White House with Trump. Only pay attention to George Soros and Bill Gates. How about we pay attention to all of them? This isn't about support the left-wing billionaires versus, being against the right-wing billionaires. How about we just call it all out, right? And don't play into that false left-right paradigm, that false dichotomy, my friends, because that is the real answer.
Since 2012, the Conscious Resistance Network has been an independent media organization focused on empowering individuals through education, philosophy, health, and community organizing. We work to create a world where corporate and state power do not rule over the lives of free human beings. Our motto is leading by example and helping others in their pursuit of freedom. Visit theconsciousresistance.com to find our articles, documentaries, interviews, podcasts, books, and more. Remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free.